Hello, everybody. Earlier in the day, my colleagues from India shared with you several data sets about AMR in different human populations. I would be giving you a flavor, only a flavor, of some of the data from the animals in Indian setting. And most of these data are from a recently established network called as Indian Network for Fisheries and Animals Antimicrobial Resistance, with the acronym as INFAR. You all are aware India is growing at the rate of 1.1% per year. We are 1.36 billion today. By 2030, we shall be 1.5 billion. But at the same time, the economy of the country is also increasing. If you look at the GDP per capita for India, in last 8 years, it has increased by more than 60%, and we are now almost $2,000 per capita per year. So two things are happening, which I said just now. Population is increasing, and economy is becoming better. So what is the end product of that? People are now having more money to buy protein-rich food of animal origin. And since there are more people, you will need more animals to provide that animal food. It's estimated that in Southeast Asia, in which India is a part of that, the demand of poultry is going to increase by 725% between the period 2000 to 2030. And the same chart also shows how the demand for poultry has been growing up. I don't have time here, but I could have showed you the data for how the requirement of eggs has also been increasing manifold in India, just because people, for themselves or for their families, now want protein-rich food of animal origin. If you need more food, we need more animals. But how many animals do we have in India as of today? It's exactly the same population of animal as is the population of human beings. If you combine livestock and poultry, we are 1.36 or 1.4 billion of animals. That means 1 to 1. But as the human population grows and as the demand for food from animal would grow in near future, the number of animals are bound to grow much more rapidly as compared to the human population. If that happens, we would be needing more antibiotics, because that has been the trend so far. I'm not coming to AMR, but so far the trend has been that we have been using more and more antibiotics. And though in animal sector, we use only 3% of the global antibiotics, but yet we are one of the leaders in the world in consumption of antibiotics in animals. And this demand is also bound to increase by manyfold in years to come, and understandably, because we all know why antibiotics are being used in different context in animals, whether for growth promotion or for treatment or for metaphylaxis. Now, what is the impact of this greater use of antibiotics or indiscriminate use of antibiotics in animals as a source for humans? And I would like to reinforce some of the things which Mark said in the previous session in my forthcoming slides, that there is no clear-cut mechanism by which we can say this infection is coming from animals to humans only, and not from humans to animals. And I'll try to show you this in next 4 or 5 slides. This is the resistance in Escherichia coli in livestock and poultry. The data is of previous year, 2018, the last quarter of 2018. This is being analyzed more. And you will see that even the antibiotics which were introduced just a few years back, there also the resistance has started coming up and is around 40 to 50%. But if you look at the antibiotics which have been in use for many years, there also, not in all the cases, the resistance would be too high. Somewhere the resistance would be between 30 to 40%. We need to find out why and why it is happening in this context. If you disaggregate this data into data for poultry only, and you find some of the newer antibiotics, including imipenem and others, they are showing now resistance in pathogens which are there in the poultry sector. But some of the previous ones there also the antibiotic resistance is not that high. We have been using antibiotics for the last 5 decades or 6 decades. Why is that thing happening? So we need to find out all those factors before we embark upon controlling this problem in animals. This is something which we saw recently, and incidentally, this is the same place from where Amrita Institute is located in Kochi. We found there that the fishes, when they were caught at the landing point, they did not have any MRSA. They had some other resistance, but there was no MRSA there in the fishes. But when the same lot of fishes was followed up in the retail market, and from there material was collected and tested, we found higher degree of MRSA. Is it coming from environment, or is it coming from human handlers? Which way it is flowing? I think this is something which needs to be ascertained by using modern tools. MRSA is a major issue in human health. Everyone is talking. Now look at the data. This is the data both from the human health side as well as from the livestock side. And this is a recent data. And I have just picked up those data on which we can say this is quality data, or these are multi-centered studies which are very well controlled. You look at the human health side, it's always 40 to 50% MRSA. And all my friends and colleagues from India will vouch for it. This is what they see in their tertiary care hospitals or in their health settings. But look at the livestock. It has never reached double figure. It's never reached double figure. And this is from different places. This is from livestock. This is from poultry. And this is also from the street food. The last column is of street food. In 2017, a study was done in Chennai. And there also, MRSA in food or street food was not that high. Why? Food for thought. We need to think about it. Okay. Same is true for ESBL. In our hospitals, especially the tertiary care hospitals, ESBL is at a level. You can, as Ramanan was saying in the morning, you don't have to invest for this kind of information. We know in our hospitals what is the level of ESBL or what is the level of MRSA. But look at the level of ESBLs. At different places, in different settings, it is different in animal sector. Why it is so? We need to go into all those factors to find out what's happening there and how can we contain this problem, at least in the animal sector. Again, since morning, many people have said that AMR is an extremely, extremely complex situation. But then, so is the status of understanding. This also we have been hearing since morning. We don't know this, we don't know this, we don't know this. So there are many things which are misunderstood, that animals are the only sources of resistance to human beings, or that all antibiotics that are being used there are generating resistant pathogens. Some are ill understood. Do you use antibiotics for 2 years in poultry and then resistance comes up? Or do you use for 20 years? Or you stop using it and the resistance goes down but never comes back? Now, several such issues need to be handled before we come to this conclusion that yes, this is the exact source of our infection into the human beings, and we need to do something about that. And of course, finally, we have been talking during coffee breaks also about environment. Where does the environment sector and all those areas where a lot of interaction between different concentrations of antibiotics and different bacteria in an environment where the temperatures are also conducive for their growth is happening. What is the end result of that and how it is moving upward? These are also not clearly understood. Some immediate evidence gaps, some, not all. Are antibiotics alone responsible for increase in AMR? Or is there something that how much dose you use, how much duration you use? So we need to find out then about the environmental factors. What would be the impact if we ban the use of all antibiotics in growth promotion of animals? There is a study which says in India alone, there would be a loss of around $1 billion per year. And you combine it with the money that would be needed to invest into improving sanitation and improving biosecurity, how much would be the amount that would be needed for that, and how much would be the time needed for that. And that's important in our context because all the decisions have to be made by someone who is at the highest level of the politics of the country. Abdul was talking about how he could convince the government not to use cholesterol or not to import cholesterol. That's fine. But the politicians live from one election to another election. They don't live beyond that because they are uncertain about it. Now, if you want to start something when this election takes place, politicians should be made sure that the results would be available before the next election starts so that they can go back to the voters and tell them the unemployment or whatever loss they had has already been made up. I think there are several issues. AMR is, as again has been said since morning, it's not a technical problem alone. It's an educational problem. It's a behavioral problem. It's a regulatory problem. It's a political problem. It's an economic problem. And you have to handle all the levels to cut short the containment and spread of antimicrobial resistance. Well, friends, I'm coming to the last slide, which some of my friends have said that nowadays on social media, something is going on, what is called as a 10-year challenge. What are you today and what do you want to be after 10 years? Let's see. This is what we are, somewhere near to that. And this is where we want to be 10 years down the line after accepting this challenge, and hope we all can work together and do it. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you.